S. Chan presents educational video lectures as per the new UGC curriculum. Difficult concepts made easy. Study anywhere, anytime.
हमने अपने पेरेंट्स को चेक साइन करते हुए तो बहुत बार देखा होगा, बट क्या कभी डिटेल में देखा है कि वो कैसे एक चेक को ड्राफ्ट कर रहे हैं, वो कहाँ पे क्या लाइंस ड्रॉ कर रहे हैं, कहाँ पे क्या डिटेल्स मेंशन कर रहे हैं. वेल, इट्स नॉट जस्ट अ रैंडम ड्राइंग दैट दे आर मेकिंग ऑन द चेक. इट होल्ड्स सर्टेन लीगल सिग्निफिकेंस. एंड आपके चेक पे कहाँ मार्किंग करने से कहाँ चेंजेस आ जाएंगे, कहाँ उसकी इन्फोर्सिबिलिटी में चेंजेस आ जाएंगे, कहाँ एक डिफरेंट डायरेक्शन मिलेगा आपके बैंक को पेमेंट करने के लिए, वो सब हम आज के वीडियो लेक्चर में डिस्कस करने वाले हैं.
If you want to study this topic in detail, refer to the book by S. Chan Publishing and Vikas Publishing House. Link is provided in the description box.
हेलो स्टूडेंट्स, वेलकम टू एस चांद अकेडमी एंड आई एम कनिका कौशिक. और आज हम डिस्कस करेंगे क्रॉसिंग ऑफ चेक्स के बारे में. वी विल बी डिस्कसिंग अबाउट क्रॉसिंग ऑफ चेक्स टुडे. सो नाउ व्हाट इज एन अनक्रॉस चेक? एन अनक्रॉस चेक को आप ऐसे समझ सकते हैं कि वो एक ओपन चेक है. उसका पेमेंट किसी भी इंसान को मिल सकता है जिसका नाम मेंशन हो वहाँ पे. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आपने चेक पे नाम लिखा है अजय शर्मा, बट यू कैन नॉट स्पेसिफाई विच अजय शर्मा, राइट? और there is a possibility that somebody with the name of Ajay Sharma steals that check and takes the money out from your account. But for that purpose it becomes very difficult कि किसने पैसा निकलवाया अकाउंट में से. इस चीज़ को अवॉइड करने के लिए हम क्रॉसिंग ऑफ चेक्स करते हैं. अब हम अगर चेक को क्रॉस ना करें, सो द पेमेंट ऑफ एन अनक्रॉस चेक टू बी मेड एट द काउंटर ऑन प्रेजेंटेशन ऑफ द चेक. यानी कि क्या हो रहा है, अगर चेक क्रॉस नहीं है तो आपने काउंटर पे, बैंक के काउंटर पे चेक को प्रेजेंट करा और आपको पेमेंट मिल जाएगी. बट देयर इज अ पॉसिबिलिटी, एज वी जस्ट डिस्कस, दैट द रॉन्ग पर्सन टेक्स अवे द पेमेंट ऑफ द चेक. और अनदर पॉसिबिलिटी इज देयर दैट द रॉन्ग पर्सन negotiates that check into some other person. Now what is happening? The wrong person, he is not holding any good title on the instrument, right? उसने तो चोरी से वो इंस्ट्रूमेंट लिया है, but because it is a negotiable instrument, तो उसने जब उसको नेगोशिएट करा, तो उसने जिस भी पर्सन के फेवर में उस इंस्ट्रूमेंट को नेगोशिएट करा, दैट पर्सन विल गेट अ गुड टाइटल एंड इट विल क्रिएट अ लॉट ऑफ प्रॉब्लम्स इन लॉ बिकॉज द पेमेंट विल नाउ बी मेड. क्योंकि अब जिस पर्सन के पास वो अगर नेगोशिएबल इंस्ट्रूमेंट है और उसने गुड फेथ और मनी कंसिडरेशन के लिए लिया है, तो उसके पास टाइटल भी गुड है, और गुड टाइटल है तो यानी पेमेंट भी मिलनी चाहिए. तो अब इन सब चीज़ें को अवॉइड करने के लिए what we resort to is crossing of checks. So now what is a crossing of check? So what happens in crossing of a check is, now the payment is supposed to be made only through bank. So if I draft a check, I make you as the payee and I make certain markings on the check. We will be discussing, don't worry. अभी हम आगे के डिस्कशन में डिस्कस करेंगे कैसी मार्किंग्स करनी है, कहाँ करनी है, उन मार्किंग्स का इम्प्लीकेशन क्या है. बट अगर हमने चेक को क्रॉस करा, वो किसी भी तरह की क्रॉसिंग है, that implies कि payment is supposed to be made through the bank account. So if I've made a check, I've crossed it and you are the payee. So the bank will not give you cash at the presentment of the check on the counter. Rather, the payment will be transferred to your bank account. So that what is happening? If the payment is to be made to the bank of the person, we understand that the bank is maintaining all the records. Which money is going to which account, from which person is that money coming. So it becomes very easy for us to identify in cases of fraud and fraudulent transfers of negotiable instruments, and especially as we're discussing here, the fraudulent transfers of checks. Now a crossing of checks serves as an instruction to the drawee, that is the bank, that the payment is not to be made at the counter but through the bank. तो अगर मैंने उस पर कुछ क्रॉसिंग करी है, उसका implication आपके लिए कुछ नहीं है. If I mention that through check you will be getting 5,000 rupees, you will still be getting only 5,000 rupees, not a penny less or not a penny more. But उस क्रॉसिंग का implication क्या होगा कि मैंने बैंक को इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया है कि आप अगर पेमेंट करेंगे तो वो पेमेंट बैंक के थ्रू होगी, वो उसके अकाउंट में जाएगी पेमेंट, वो आप उसको काउंटर पे पेमेंट नहीं देंगे, आप उसको कैश में पे नहीं करेंगे. नाउ क्रॉसिंग डज नॉट अफेक्ट द नेगोशिएशन ऑफ द चेक. अगर आपने चेक को क्रॉस कर भी दिया, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि आप उसको आगे नेगोशिएट नहीं कर पाएंगे, आप उसको वेल एंड गुड ट्रांसफर कर सकते हैं एक नेक्स्ट ट्रांसफरी के लिए। सो नाउ दिस इज एन एग्जांपल ऑफ एन अनक्रॉस्ड ओपन चेक। हियर द पर्सन वुड बी mentioning the amount. Say for example the amount is 1000. We'll be writing that in words as well, and the signature is affixed for this person. This is a check, right? Now what happens upon crossing? So the act specifies different types of crossings. So the first one is a general crossing, and it is given under section 123 of the act. Now what does section 123 say? Let us just read it once and then we'll discuss what is the implication of this. So where a check bears across its face an addition of the words "and company" or any abbreviation thereof between two parallel transverse lines, or of two parallel transverse lines simply, either with or without the words "not negotiable", that addition shall be deemed a crossing and the check shall be deemed to be crossed generally. यानी कि अगर आपने दो पैरेलल लाइंस ड्रॉ करी हैं चेक पे एंड दे आर ट्रांसवर्स पैरेलल लाइंस, एंड उसके बियॉन्ड या तो आपने सिर्फ वो दो लाइंस ड्रॉ करी हैं, या आप उसमें एंड कंपनी वर्ड्स भी मेंशन कर रहे हैं, या आप नॉट नेगोशिएबल वर्ड्स भी मेंशन कर रहे हैं, देन दैट मीन्स इट इज अ जनरल क्रॉसिंग. नाउ लेट अस लुक एट एन एग्जांपल. हमें ये वाली क्रॉसिंग करनी कैसे है. सो यू मस्ट हैव सीन कि ऐसे जब दो लाइंस ड्रॉ होती हैं चेक पे, दिस इज अ जनरल क्रॉसिंग. दिस सिग्निफाइज टू द ड्रॉई बैंक दैट द पेमेंट इज सपोज्ड टू बी मेड only through the account. You must have seen that even our parents are in the habit of writing account payee here. So even if you don't mention the word account payee, it suffices, क्योंकि आपने चेक के ऊपर दो लाइंस ड्रॉ कर ली हैं and that is a very valid general crossing. So the section mentions that you can also write words like and company. So if you're writing and company or an abbreviation thereof, जरूरी नहीं है आप पूरा and company ही लिखें. अगर आपने and को भी लिखा है, that is also valid. This signifies कि आप पेमेंट उस पर्सन को या उसकी कंपनी को कर रहे हैं, but again because two parallel lines are there, it should be through a bank only. There is another word which states if you write not negotiable, then that results to end of the negotiability of the instrument. In that case, what is happening? That to a particular person, whatever the name of the person is, this particular person cannot transfer it beyond to some other person. So dear students, as of now we have discussed the importance of crossing a check. That why is it important that we cross our checks? Because if we have not crossed a check, it is an uncrossed check, then it is an open check and anybody can present it to the bank and take the payment from the counter. And when the payment has been received on the counter, it becomes very difficult to trace that particular person if a case of fraud arises in future. But when we cross the check, the payment is supposed to be made only through the accounts. So the payment will not be handed over at the counter, rather it would be given through the account of that person. Now we discuss what is a general crossing, which basically involves drawing two parallel lines, और उन parallel lines में आप कुछ mention कर सकते हैं जैसे account payee या फिर not negotiable or and company, and that will be covered as a general crossing. So dear students, we'll stop here for a short break and we'll meet after that.
Now quality learning is easily available at your doorstep. S. Chand Academy brings detailed lectures based on UGC curriculum as per the New Education Policy 2020. So do not forget to subscribe to the S. Chand Academy and access the wide world of knowledge conveniently sitting within the comfort of your home. Stay connected and keep watching S. Chand Academy. Happy learning!
Hello students, welcome back to S. Chand Academy. And we are doing the series on negotiable instruments, and we were discussing the concept of crossing of a check. We discussed why it is important to cross a check, and what are the implications of not crossing a check, what are the problems that come up when we don't cross a check, and how those problems can be avoided by drawing simply two lines across, two parallel lines across on the top of the check. Now let us move ahead and discuss the different types of crossing. We have already discussed what is a general crossing, and now we will be moving to discuss what is a special crossing. So let us first read what the section 124 of the Negotiable Instruments Act has to say about specially crossed checks. So now check crossed specially. Where a check bears across its face an addition of the name of a banker, either with or without the words not negotiable, that addition shall be deemed a crossing and the check shall be deemed to be crossed specially and to be crossed to that banker. So for example, आज के डेट में बहुत रेयर होता है that a person holds only one bank account. Every bank is offering us some or the other advantages, right? जहाँ पे हमें ऑफर्स मिलता है हमारे बैंक अकाउंट्स वहाँ पे उस बैंक में ज़रूर मिलेंगे. But let us take an example. Say for example, you want to make a check and you want to make a payment to your mother, but you want that out of all the 3-4 bank accounts she has, that payment goes only to a particular bank account. In that case, you can cross the check specially. So what are you doing here? You are adding the name of the banker, and whether you are mentioning the word not negotiable or not, it is not material here. What is important is the fact that you have mentioned the name of the banker, and by only mentioning the name of the banker, what is happening? The check becomes specially crossed. So now let's understand how we will be making a special crossing. So again, two parallel lines, and here in between these two parallel lines, what are we supposed to mention? Yes, you're right, it would be the name of the bank. So for example, this is an example of the check, a specimen check from the State Bank of India. And if you want to make a payment to your friend, say who has accounts in say SBI, Punjab National Bank, or say HDFC Bank, and now you want that this payment should go only to the bank account which he has in Punjab National Bank. So to exclude the other two banks, what are you doing? You would be mentioning the name of the bank here. So you would be writing the name of the bank. I am writing the abbreviations, but the general practice is that you write the complete name of the bank. So here Punjab National Bank is mentioned, and in this way what is happening? Remember what we discussed while discussing what is a crossing? A crossing is basically an instruction to the drawee bank. So now what instructions does this crossing give to the drawee bank? It gives the instruction that firstly, because there are two parallel lines, you have to make the payment only through the account. You cannot make the payment on presentment of the check at the counter and give the payment in cash. That is strictly prohibited. Now secondly, you have also mentioned the name of the bank in which you want the payment to be transferred. So if a person, say for example, you are making the payment to somebody named Ajay, and this person Ajay has accounts in all these three banks, but you want the payment to go only in the Punjab National Bank. So what will you do? You will mention the name Punjab National Bank here in crossing, and that will signify to the banker that the payment will be transferred only into this account. So if somebody, if the person who is the payee, he drops the check in another account, the payment would not be done. Now let us understand how is a payment made for crossed checks. Now section 126 tells us about the payment of check which is crossed generally, and also about the checks which have been crossed specially. Now where a check is crossed generally, the banker on whom it is drawn shall not pay it otherwise than to a banker. So now what is happening? Say for example, there is this person A and he has made a payment to B. He has his account in say bank 1 and he has an account in bank 2. Now if it is a generally crossed check, what is happening? A, by giving the generally crossed check to B, he is also simultaneously giving an instruction to bank 1, and the instruction that he has given is that the payment should be made only to the banker. So now instead of the payment going from A's bank directly to B, this is not happening. What will happen? Bank 1 will give the payment to Bank 2 and then Bank 2 will transfer that payment to B's account. So here what is happening? The bank of the payee, the banker of the payee is also involved in the transaction. I hope this thing is very clear. Had this not be a cross checked, what would happen? The payment will go from A to A to Bank 1 and from Bank 1 it can be directly given to B because it is a uncrossed check. But because it is a crossed check now in this case, a generally crossed check will also involve the banker of the payee, which is Bank 2, and then the payment will be received by B. So now let us discuss how is a payment of check crossed specially supposed to be made. Now where a check is crossed specially, the banker on whom it is drawn shall not pay it otherwise than to the banker to whom it is crossed or his agent for collection. Now what is happening here? Let us take the previous example. A makes a check for B and then what is happening? In this case, A's bank, which is Bank 1, is getting an instruction to pay the money to B's banker. But in general crossing, we did not specify the name of the B's bank. We did not specify who will be the banker to whom the payment will be made. But in special crossing, we specify the name of the bank. So for the example that we took, we specified Punjab National Bank, right? Now, Bank 1 is supposed to make the payment not to B's banker. It is supposed to make a payment only to Punjab National Bank. Now, B's banker term is a wider term, right? He may have bank accounts in a lot of banks. उसके पास अकाउंट HDFC बैंक में भी हो सकता है, पंजाब नेशनल बैंक में भी हो सकता है, SBI में भी हो सकता है. बट अगर हमने स्पेशली क्रॉस कर दिया है चेक को, what does this signify? This signifies the fact that now payment from Bank 1, which is A's banker, will go to Punjab National Bank, and then Punjab National Bank will be transferring this payment to B. I hope this thing is clear that in an uncrossed check, the banker of the payee is not involved. In a generally crossed check, we say that the banker of the payee will be involved, but we do not say who will be the banker of the payee. So for example, if a person has account in 3 banks, he may present the check to any of his bankers and then the transaction will happen. But if it is a specially crossed check, then the instruction to the drawee bank is that the payment is to be made only to the banker to whom it is crossed. I hope this thing is clear. अगर नहीं है तो आप पीछे से रिवाइंड करके एक बार फिर वीडियो लेक्चर को देख सकते हैं, and I hope the things will be clear then. Now we also discussed how we can mention the term not negotiable on the check. Isn't it interesting how check is a negotiable instrument और आप उसी के ऊपर not negotiable लिख रहे हो? Does it not sound contrary? Well, yes, it is contrary, but then again there is a purpose behind signing not negotiable on the check. Now a person taking a check crossed generally or specially, so it does not say कि आपका जो check है वो crossed generally भी हो सकता है, specially भी हो सकता है. जरूरी नहीं है कि आपने उसमें बैंकर का नाम स्पेसिफाई करा हो ना करा हो, that is not important. What is important here is that it should be crossed. Bearing in either case the words not negotiable, these words hold significance for our discussion right now. Bearing in either case the words not negotiable shall not have and shall not be capable of giving a better title to the check than that which the other person from whom he took it had. So we are talking about the better title, and we are again coming to the same discussion, the same legal maxim, nemo quod dat non habet. That means you cannot transfer something which you do not have a title to. So इसमें ये क्या बोल रहा है कि अगर आपका चेक जनरली या स्पेशली क्रॉस्ड है और वो क्रॉसिंग ऑल्सो मेंशन करती है कि वो चेक अब नॉट नेगोशिएबल हो गया है, यानी कि अगर आप अब उसको ट्रांसफर करेंगे तो आप उसमें कुछ बेटर टाइटल नहीं देंगे. यू रिमेंबर द फर्स्ट वीडियो लेक्चर ऑन नेगोशिएबल इंस्ट्रूमेंट्स एक्ट, we discussed the 2 important characteristics of a negotiable instrument. Firstly, that it can be transferred, and secondly, that good title will be given. Now, when we are talking about good title and transferability, when we are saying it is not negotiable, we are doing away with this concept. Now, the title which will be transferred would be the one which was there with the person who had given the check. So, now let us discuss the non-liability of a banker receiving payment of a check. So, section 131 says कि non-liability of banker receiving payment of a check. A banker who has in good faith and without negligence received payment for a customer of a check crossed generally or specially, so the check has been crossed, to himself shall not, in case the title of the check proves defective, incur any liability to the true owner of the check by reason only of having received such payment. ये क्या कह रहा है कि अगर एक चेक है which has been crossed, वो general crossing भी हो सकती है, वो special crossing भी हो सकती है. If that check has been received by a banker and the check was received in good faith, that means the intentions of the bank were right. The bank did not have any malafide intentions. Secondly, it was without negligence. अब अगर हम negligence की बात करें, so it would not be talking about the due care and diligence that a normal person would employ. Rather, it should be the one that is expected out of the stature of a banker. यानी कि आप बैंक से जितना केयरफुल होने के लिए एक्सपेक्ट करोगे, बैंक अपने पार्ट पे उतना केयरफुल था और उसने अगर चेक को रिसीव करा है तो वो रिसीट भी गुड फेथ में थी. चेक क्रॉस था तो उस केस में क्या होगा, द टाइटल टू द चेक प्रूव्स डिफेक्टिव. अगर कल को ये होता है कि जो चेक का टाइटल है वो गलत है, यानी कि जो चेक है वो फ्रॉडुलेंटली बना हो या जिसने बनाया हो, जिसने चेक को ड्राफ्ट करा हो उसके पास कैपेसिटी ना हो चेक को ड्राफ्ट करने की, तो उस केस में क्या होगा, जो बैंकर है जिसने उस चेक को रिसीव करा है उसकी कोई लायबिलिटी नहीं होगी टुवर्ड्स द पर्सन हु हैज मेड द चेक. यानी जो ड्रॉर है चेक का, जिसने चेक को बनाया है, उसके लिए बैंकर की कोई रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं होगी. क्यों? क्योंकि पहली बात उसने कोई नेग्लिजेंस एम्प्लॉय नहीं करी, दूसरी बात कि जो पेमेंट है वो गुड फेथ में हुई है. बैंक के पास कोई रीजन नहीं था ये बिलीव करने के लिए कि पेमेंट किसी गलत इंटेंशन से मांगी जा रही है या जो चेक है वो डिफेक्टिव है. बैंक को कैसे पता लगता है कि चेक में कुछ प्रॉब्लम है? एट टाइम्स क्या होता है कि आपने जहां पे नेम लिखा है और आपने जहां पे नंबर्स लिखे हैं और वर्ड्स में आपने अमाउंट लिखा है पेमेंट के लिए, उसमें अगर मिसमैच होगा, हैंडराइटिंग में मिसमैच होगा या कोई स्पेलिंग एरर्स होंगे या कहीं पे क्रॉसिंग हो रखी है, कट कर रखा है चेक पे और फिर दोबारा नाम लिखा गया है, these instances give rise to a speculation कि शायद चेक में कोई प्रॉब्लम है, चेक को प्रॉपरली ड्राफ्ट नहीं करा गया है. इन केसेस में बैंक उस चेक को मोस्टली रिजेक्ट कर देता है. बट अगर बैंक के पास कोई रीजन नहीं था बिलीव करने के लिए कि वो चेक डिफेक्टिव हो सकता है टाइटल में, एंड उसके बाद अगर पेमेंट करी है बैंक ने गुड फेथ में, then that implies that the banker will not have any liability towards the person who has made the check. So students, in this lecture we discussed about the crossing of a check. We discussed how a crossing of a check holds vital importance in trade and commerce in daily life because it is dependent upon crossing of a check whether the payment will be made on the counter or whether it would be transferred to the account of the payee. Then we discussed the different types of crossings, which are general crossing and special crossing. Thereafter, we discussed how a payment is supposed to be made in case of a general crossing and in case of a special crossing. We understood the implications of writing the term not negotiable on the check, and finally we discussed about the liability of the banker on the person who has drawn the check, and finally we discussed the non-liability of the banker to the person who has drawn the check. Thank you.
If you want to study this topic in detail, refer to the book by S. Chand Publishing and Vikas Publishing House. Link is provided in the description box. If you found our video interesting, please like, share and subscribe. And do not forget to press the bell icon.
All rights reserved. This video has been prepared for educational purposes only. No part of it may be reproduced or copied without the permission of the copyright holder.